I go to our final lesson today, lesson 4. And in this lesson 4, I'll be very brief. I'll be able to take you through forms of business organizations. I'm going to discuss about 5 forms of business organizations. And the first one, we're going to look at the sole proprietorship. We look at what are its features. Why does one need to start a sole proprietorship and not a partnership, for example? I'll look at what a partnership is, its merits and demerits. Joint stock companies, what we normally call public limited companies. And then what we call the savings and credit cooperative organizations, or SACCO. And finally, I'll look at the parastatals and give you also a few questions as take home. So I start with sole proprietorship. Now, this is a form of business organization that is owned by one person, an individual like you and me. When we decide to get into business, we can become a sole proprietor, where we are the sole capital provider. We can borrow, or we can get from friends, we can do our savings, but basically we are the sole provider of that capital. Then the sole proprietor becomes the manager of his business. Normally they do not have a big structure, because it is either him and maybe his wife or his son or his daughter. They are running the business, and it is their own business. Family business also fall under this sole proprietorship if it is not registered as a limited company. Then I want to say this before I go on. What differentiates one form of business organization from the other is the kind of registration that we do. So a sole proprietorship will require very little capital, and basically they may not even have many government regulations. They only need a trade license. So I have an example of a sole proprietor business, and it's said in US. I borrowed this from the internet, but you can see this guy here is the owner. He's the one managing, he's the one organizing, he's the one picking. You can see a sole proprietor is the person who does everything. He's the one calling the people to come and buy. He's the one organizing. He has to balance everything. He's the one picking the money. He's the one contacting the supplier. He's everything in that business. He's the sole decision maker. He knows where to put what, which customers to reach. The owners, they are the marketers. They are everything in this particular. That is a form of a sole proprietorship. What are its advantages and disadvantages? The first advantage we may talk about is that it requires very little capital to start. Since one is the owner and he's the one who is managing that business, he can easily keep his business secrets. He does not share profits with anybody. It is flexible business. Today, I may be selling the tomatoes, but if they're out of season, I can always go to something else. Unlike big businesses, which require so much operational costs. But a sole proprietorship is very flexible because they are normally small. They are flexible in terms of management and operation. Even one can be able to change from one business to another, A to B to C, A, B, C, D. Today I'm selling clothes, tomorrow I'm selling foodstuffs, because I'm able to change. Then it has very few government regulations, because all one needs to have is a trade license. What are its disadvantages? The greatest disadvantage is that it has very low growth. It does not benefit from a pool of expertise, because I cannot be, as a sole proprietor, I cannot be a good marketer, a good financier, a good bookkeeper, a good, I can only be good in one area or maybe two. But being in a sole proprietorship makes my business suffer, because I'm not able to benefit from the expertise. Remember, even the profitability of these sole proprietorships is low, and therefore they are not really able to afford to employ experts in their businesses. Now, if the business makes losses, the sole proprietor has to bear all the loss. Now, the owner has got unlimited liability. Let me explain that. Normally, in a sole proprietorship, the owner and the business are one entity. There is no separation between the business and the owner. It means, in case the business makes losses or incurs liabilities, even his personal properties, his shamba, his house, his car, could be picked to pay for those liabilities because they are one and the same. There is no separation between the two entities. Then, these businesses, they lack any form of organization structure. And sadly, also, when the owner dies, the founder dies, the business frequently dies with him or with her. They do not have that long succession plan. The vision, once the vision bearer goes, most of the businesses, they go with them. Then let's look at the second form of business organization, and that is the partnerships. Now, we have kind of, I'm going to classify two partnerships here. Number one, a partnership is that business that's formed by between 2 people and 20 people if they are not offering professional services. But the law in Kenya that guides the partnership, it allows up to 50 partners to be in one partnership if they are offering what we call professional expertise. For example, if it is a medical business and we require like 50 kind of specialization of doctors, the government can allow them to make a partnership that has got up to 50 doctors with different specialization. And that is allowed. Now, there are 2 ways in which a partnership can be formed. Number one, it can be formed through what we call gentleman's agreement, oral agreement. In that way, they don't make a formal agreement. If they do not make a formal agreement, they must agree to be guided by the Act of Parliament, the Partnership Act of Parliament, that is an old one, but it states as follows, that every partner, if they don't have a formal agreement, they all must contribute equal amounts of capital. They share profits and losses equally. There are no salaries or commissions that any partner can be able, even if, for example, one of the partner is working for the partnership, he cannot earn any salary or commission. That is when they are operating without a formal deed or agreement. However, the second way in which a partnership can be able to form is where they come together and they decide they want to do a formal agreement, which we call the partnership deed. If they have a written partnership deed, they're not doing it on what we are calling gentleman's agreement, they don't have to contribute equal amounts of capital. One may be more endowed, and therefore they can bring more into the partnership. That means when they are sharing the profits and losses, they are going to share according to the ratio they have agreed. Then, the partners who work in the partnership are entitled for a salary or commission. And that is the difference between that which is without a formal deed and that which has got a written agreement. So we ask ourselves, does the partnership go on forever? The answer is no. It's possible to dissolve a partnership. And there's a number of reasons why a partnership may just end. The first one is that if any of the partners is dissatisfied and asks for a dissolution in writing, then a partnership can be dissolved. Similarly, if one of the partners becomes insane and or becomes bankrupt, again, a partnership can be dissolved. Similarly, also, the government can be able to order a dissolution of a partnership. At what point? For example, when they declare a business illegal. Like recently we had the issue of illegal brew. And in that illegal brew, if the partnership was having such kind of a business, with a government order, the partnership has been dissolved. Let's go to our third kind of business organization, which we call a joint stock company. It's called joint stock because so many people whom we are calling shareholders are jointly owning the stocks in this company. It is also referred to as a public limited company. This kind of a business organization is found by a minimum of 5 people and has got no maximum because it will depend on the number of people who are buying shares. Now, remember, these shares can also be easily transferable. And one does not even need to ask for permission from anyone to transfer their shares. Now, it is managed by a board of directors. And before they even form that joint stock company, the directors must prepare a number of documents, which I want us to understand. They must prepare, number one, a memorandum of association. This memorandum of association, it tells the world about the vision and the mission of this company. It tells the world what the purpose of their existence is. For example, if they are doing the banking, they must come out clear and tell everybody that this is our mandate. They do that in the memorandum of association. The second document they must prepare, it is called the Articles of Association. In the Articles of Association, it guides the internal operations of the company. For example, it will talk about when are the meetings going to be called, what are the notices, what are the rules that are going to guide elections in the company, how are decisions going to be made, what are the timelines. All those are these that are included in any Articles of Association. They also have to prepare other documents like the declaration by the directors, which they sign, and they declare that they have agreed to be the directors and they are going to operate as directors in that company. They also must sign a statement saying that they are also owning some shares in the company. Having put together all those documents, they must file those documents to the registrar of companies, who may approve or disapprove. If they are disapproved, of course, the company does not start. But in the event that the documents are approved and it is a prudent company according to the registrar, he gives them or he issues what we call certificate of incorporation. What does the certificate of incorporation entails? Number one, it gives the company the right to exist. Number two, it recognizes that company as a legal or fictitious person. A legal person, independent person from the shareholders, which means that the shareholders have got what we call limited liability. In case the company is held liable, the shareholders' personal properties cannot be taken, like that of proprietorship, cannot be taken to meet the obligations of the liability, because these are two different entities. It separates the shareholders from the company. As such, therefore, the company can own its own properties, it can enter into contractual agreements, it can be sued or it can sue, it can then start to operate. It can operate after that certificate of incorporation. Having received the certificate of incorporation, the company or the directors now prepares what we call a prospectus, which is kind of an application form inviting the members of the public to buy shares from the company. That is how it operates. Let's look at what are the advantages and the disadvantages. Number one advantage is that a joint stock company has got a wide pool of capital. Why? Because the shareholders can keep on buying shares from the company. We said that it has a lower limit of the shareholders but may not have the upper limit. So they are able to really have a pool of capital. They benefit from the pool of expertise. Because of the capital, they are even able to employ experts to operate their company. It is sustainable because the shares are transferable. If I'm tired with my shares, I can always sell them without anybody's permission. They experience rapid growth because of the capital availability, and members enjoy returns without having to work in the company. All I have to wait after buying the shares, I wait at the end of the year and I receive my dividends. So those are advantages. However, it also has its own limits. And the first one is that most times we hear of conflicts. We hear of embezzlements of funds, mismanagement by the directors, and the shareholders have got very little participation in the decisions that are made. Even when they are called for meetings, just a few go, and therefore the decisions are made by just a few individuals. Let's look at cooperative societies, what we call the SACCOs. We have two kinds of SACCOs. We have the savings and credit, and we also have the product SACCOs. But today I want us to look at the savings and credit, where members contribute. They buy shares, they buy through contribution of their savings, and they can borrow depending on the terms and conditions of that cooperative. It is formed by a minimum of 3 people and no maximum again. And it is registered at the Ministry of Cooperatives in Kenya. And basically, they aim at helping its members to save, and they can borrow. Their advantages and disadvantages are similar to those of a public limited company. What about the statutory organizations, which we call the parastatos? These are formed by the government, or rather, the government provides the initial capital. And it is expected that after that initial capital, they are supposed to offer services of products and to the citizens, and then they are supposed to meet their cost and be able to run the businesses on their own. Not every time the government pumping in capital. The government, after providing, it is expected that it is going to stand on their own and they are going to operate. We have examples like KPLC, Kenya Power and Lighting Company. We have the Kenya Railways, the Kenya Pipeline, etc. We have a number of them in Kenya. And basically the reason why the government will form such organization is to provide essential services to the citizens. It has its own advantages again and disadvantages. For example, there is the available capital from the government. It offers essential services at subsidized price. And the services and products are available to majority of the citizens. Frequently, if we look at the disadvantages, frequently there is poor supervision and poor performance. Some of them keep on going back to the government to be refunded because maybe they have embezzled funds, they have stolen the funds, and unfortunately some of them even go unpunished. And that is one of the disadvantages and make the quality of the services of the product to be very poor. And the reason being poor supervision. And we always wish as Kenyans that they would be more supervised in a better way so that they can offer the services that are of quality. We come to the end of our lesson 4 for today. And again, these are the sample questions that I want to leave you with. I want you to discuss the features of parastatals that you are familiar with. Try to analyze what makes them perform the way they do. And critically, analyze the performance of such organizations. Then there is a statement that I'm asking you either you agree with or you disagree, and you give a justification to your answer. I've said, parastatals perform better than private institutions. Do you agree with the statement? And if you do, or you don't, you justify your answer. We are done for today, our 4 lessons. I want to say thank you so much. Thank you for being with me throughout. Stay safe, and God bless you.
We are in a digital era, and Mount Kenya University knows this. The following are the steps to follow so as to complete your online application. Download the application form from the website www.mku.ac.ke. Attach copies of your academic certificates and ID. Pay the application fees via M-Pesa pay bill number 270988. Your ID is the account number. 2,000 shillings is the charge for a postgraduate. You can also deposit in the bank accounts provided on the website. Then, email all the above to apply@mku.ac.ke.